It is the latest episode of This Crap Was on National Television. And if you're wondering why I'm wearing the toque, well, you'll figure this out pretty soon afterwards. We always say national television, and the whole reference is usually about the United States. But I said to my American friend, Chris, how about we look at Canadian crap? Although the feedback I've been getting from my Canadian friends is that this is not crap. What do you think? We're looking at the Beachcombers, the oldest episode I could find.
Yeah. Hey, Kirk, it's good to be on again. Yeah, you know what? I didn't think it was crap either. I thought it was cute. I didn't think it was like Emmy level, American Emmy level television, but I didn't think I wouldn't call it crap. But I will say there's no American equivalent to this type of show. And we can get more into it, but when I was researching the show before our conversation, I saw that it was sold into syndication into several different countries. And it's interesting because I was thinking the only place I could see this airing in America is either Saturday morning television, like in syndication, or on PBS, because there's no, in this era, the 70s up through the early 90s, there was no show that was this equivalent. You could call it a family sitcom because it had like family friendly,
Which it was.
PG type humor.
Mhm.
But all family sitcoms in America were on videotape. And they involved, actual biological family, like mom, dad, kids.
Mhm.
And shows like Wings and Cheers that were around like sort of a workplace setting or a destination, for lack of a better word. They had more saltier adult humor. Like Cheers, Wings, as I mentioned, those shows all had saltier adult humor. And this was almost borderline. Like if this was on like the Christian broadcasting network, they don't overtly mention religion except for the trying to scare Relic, making him think he's dead. But this is almost like an after school special, like, oh, be a good person. So I could have seen it being an after school special on PBS or Saturday morning TV. That's the only way I could have seen it airing in the United States.
Mhm. Well, I think the reason that I picked this is I don't exactly, a lot of my Canadian friends have fonder memories of this show than I do. Personally, this is sort of when I look back as a kid, the way I remembered, and you and I have talked about this before, I can't remember if it was on air or off, where I would look at Canadian television, and just for historical reference, so I was born in 72, this episode would have been in 75. So the coming of age of learning of television, not that I guess kids today, they don't even think of television, they think of other things, I suppose, in terms of streaming and whatnot. But it would have been in the late 70s, early 80s. And then we would have the Canadian shows and the American shows, because like almost everyone in Canada, you could get 90% of the population of Canada is within 100 kilometers of the US border. So more often than not, you were getting the ABCs, CBS, NBCs, like I did. We would get them all from Buffalo before, then you get cable, and you're still getting all the Buffalo ones in New York. So as a kid, I could see, well, there's certainly a difference in terms of production values, acting, just every little thing there. And this, for me, thinking as a Canadian, this is our most successful show, because it was. That show started in 72, I think lasted until 88 or 90. I remember watching it as a kid, just thinking, meh. And then a lot of the feedback I got from my friends when I just put this out over Facebook was, oh yeah, we remember this. Don't necessarily remember any episode, but it just made me feel Canadian.
Okay. Which is interesting because it didn't strike me as like particularly Canadian. I mean, I don't even know what that is since I'm not Canadian. But like I said, if I would have encountered this on American television, it wouldn't have stood out necessarily, except for the tone. Sure. It wouldn't have been in prime time, definitely.
and that might be another thing with me, right? Is growing up in the suburbs of Hamilton, Ontario, in a much bigger city now called Burlington, the adventures of loggers doesn't speak to me either. I don't know anything about log salvaging. I didn't even know that existed. Beyond this show, I still know nothing more about it. I don't even know how that's an industry. I guess the regular loggers are really bad at it, so they keep dropping things. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't really understand it. But I thought it would be sort of fun to look at this show from my memories and then yours with a completely fresh perspective. Should I just read some of the comments I got on my Facebook from some of my Canadian friends first before we go any further?
Absolutely.
All right. So let me bring some of that up. I actually prepped. All right. So from one of my friends, I'm assuming because the first two, they're out in BC. I imagine they grew up in BC. I met them when I was working for the train company out in Alberta. So, and then they were train managers. They were the train managers of the Rocky Mountaineer. So they're roughly, I think this first lady's a little younger than me. I love the Beachcombers. Theme song still enters my mind from time to time. Don't remember too much detail about the show, which is sort of a pattern. But I was quite young when it was on the air, and I remember that I liked Jesse. Now, Jesse, you didn't see him. He wasn't on this episode. Jesse was Nick's partner in this, and it was actually decent casting for its day because Jesse was a First Nations person. And in BC, there's a significant amount of that, especially on the coastline. So, and he was Nick's equal.
Okay.
So it was, I don't know if I can't say whether that was like really the first big First Nations role for a Canadian in television, because we really didn't have a lot of television before that. Yeah. So that was just a character that you didn't get to see. I was hoping he would be on this episode. Again, I just picked it because on YouTube specifically, this was season 4, episode 4, I think. Relics, Invisible Relic, and that was the oldest full episode I could find.
Okay.
So we ran with that. So anyway, so going on here, not a lot to watch when growing up. So many of the Canadian shows were familiar. My class took a tour of CBC studios when I was in grade 1. Bruno Gerussi was the star who played Nick, made a point of stepping in and saying hello to all of us. That's pretty damn cool. You know, because he sure as hell didn't have to do that. I think before I go any further, the Canadian channels in the early 70s also had to play Canadian content. In 72 or 73, I might be off on the year. That is when the Canadian government under Pierre Trudeau said that we're going to develop our own culture. And the best way to do that is to make all Canadian stations, radio and television, do, might be off on the percentage, 33 or 40%, I think 40% Canadian content. So that's, I guess, probably why I said Jesse might have been one of the first main First Nations characters, because I don't think there was a whole lot of produced Canadian television before that. They would just buy American.
And wasn't that a rule for radio too? Because I thought I've heard, a certain percentage had to be Canadian artists played on radio. Right,
and it did generate it took its time, because you know you'd be hearing the same Anne Murray and Gordon Lightfoot songs over and over, but it forced Canadian music to get good. It also gave you Bieber. Sorry about that, but
but there was. I mean, I'm always surprised at how many actors and musicians I find out that I thought were American are actually Canadian, like Bryan Adams and Rush and even John Candy. So there's no Michael J. Fox. There's no shortage of Alanis Morissette. There's no shortage of talent.
Yeah, there certainly is, but it gave a lot of them a start. Actually, Michael J. Fox starred in a Canadian show called Leo and Me. So you got to start there, Alanis, and as I think you and I talked about the show, you can't do that on television.
Right.
So there's Canada.
Dave Coulier from Full House. Was he on that show? I mean, was he Canadian?
Oh, he's Canadian. I don't know if he had a show prior to that. I don't know.
Well, the only real way I know him is I thought he was on Full House, and then also I thought he was the subject of You Ought to Know by Alanis Morissette. She actually has. I don't know if she ever like formally confirmed it, but it
Hmm.
was sort of like she didn't deny it when an interviewer asked her.
Yeah, it's takes a little bit of I don't want to say that you can't. It's hard to watch Full House again when you know that that's the one she was going down on you in a theater.
Yeah.
So that's the first comment from another gentleman, another train manager. Bruno was awesome. Met him and he was very cool. He also hosted a cooking show and wrote cookbooks. The show was a little slice of Canadiana, kind of corny, but endearing. Molly's Reach and Gibson's is still there. And he included a picture of that. The gentleman who included that, he's definitely from BC. Great guy. And actually, I just learned that Molly's, they actually converted that into a cafe after. It was a hardware
Oh,
store.
really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
if Wikipedia is to be believed. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Friends, let's see another comment. From my other Canadian friend who now lives in Japan. At times, it was the only thing on. I remember it fondly, now only in retrospect, as something comfortably Canadian. It wasn't bad. It just didn't speak to me. This individual, he grew up in Kingston, Ontario. So much like me, it's not like, what do we know about loggers? Nothing. Then he talked about some other shows he remembered. Flipper. Well, Flipper was American, wasn't it? But then he closes off with, "Sorry, I'm off topic. That darned Relic, he fouls up everything," which is pretty much what Relic always did. That's the only thing I really remembered of that show, was that Nick was the good one and Relic always caused mischief. I remembered nothing else. From one of my good friends, loved the Beachcombers. When I was in BC, I could have made my way out to Gibson's. Sorry, that didn't happen. From another one, Brad Nelson, who now is one of my co-hosts on How the Hell Did This Go #1. I remember watching it on occasion, though gun to my head, I couldn't tell you the plot of any show. I've also been to Molly's Reach, and it's pretty damn good. So a lot of positive, but nothing specific. So
Okay.
quite a bit of nostalgic for, and I think for a lot of us when we get older, just for simpler times. And this was simpler
Yeah.
times in Canada. I don't think there was any truckers holding that area hostage. I'm not making a political comment one way or the other.
Yeah.
I'm just making an attempt at a joke for anyone worried about what wing I'm on. I'm wingless.
The world was a less volatile place, or it seemed to be.
Well, certainly in this show it was.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then I looked at some of the comments too from this actual episode on YouTube. So I thought that might be sort of worth looking at first too. And again, it's much of the same thing from my friends who commented to me. Excellent upload, and actually that's not really anything here. And mostly it's just really the same thing. Just nobody really seems to remember too much of this other than these are great memories from when you were a kid. And I guess it's the cynic in me. I never got into the show, couldn't get into it. I remember my brother, who's much older than me, he was stationed in Canadian Forces base called Alerts, which I don't think is there anymore. It's been repurposed. So it was like it was actually closer to the North Pole than the Arctic Circle. That's how far north it was.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so CBC would send entertainment, and they keep sending the Beachcombers, and he wasn't too happy about that. As I'm sure a lot of alpha male army guys really don't want to sit back and watch family entertainment.
Yeah.
Which this was. Should we dissect the episode?
Sure. Let's get into it.
Okay, so like I said, this was again the oldest one I could find. If we ever do another Canadian show, I already know which one it's going to be. Have you ever heard of the hilarious House of Frightenstein?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Someone I've just got acquainted with on Facebook actually wrote a whole book about that show. It was just something they shot for the local Hamilton channel that existed. I think there's still only one, and it's just comedy meeting all the monsters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's corny as all hell, and it's still awesome today. One of
Sounds like that movie that Abbott and Costello did when they stumbled on Dracula's castle or whatever.
It probably could have been very well
Inspired by that.
I'm sure it was. Yeah, they cranked out like 100 episodes, shot them all in like 4 months, and they the only thing they really paid for was Vincent Price to fly in and do some of the intros.
Wow, people credit Tyler Perry with that model for shooting 100 episodes all at one time, but apparently not. Apparently it was done before Tyler Perry.
Yeah, well, there you go. Team Canada. Every now
Yeah.
and then you come up with something. So the title of this, it's Invisible Relic, aired in September of 1976. Starts with the opening music. What do you think of this opening theme here? It's very unique, don't you think?
Honestly, I don't remember the opening music.
Blasphemous. Dun, 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 dun.
Were there lyrics or was it just an instrumental?
Yeah, it's just an instrumental that was, very peppy and upbeat and starring Bruno Gerussi. I never did understand this, how a guy who's Italian played a Greek guy, but whatever.
Well, the Wikipedia entry I read, I don't know if they were referring to the character or the actor that said he was of Greek and Italian heritage. So maybe.
Oh, okay. I because when I was reading that whole thing, I mean, I did have a few flashbacks. He kept referencing his Greek heritage, like even they did in this episode. But I don't believe Bruno is Greek at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but all the way Canadian.
Well, in America, it's just common for actors to play cross-cultural. It's just not, it's not looked at as unusual.
Well, again, we're putting on our 2022 hats, and well, I put on a Relic hat, but it's something I never would have gave a minute's look, probably up until maybe 2017, 18. I just, don't think about it. Now you sort of do. I can't watch an old MASH episode even now, just thinking, wait a minute, that's a Japanese actor.
Okay. I don't know if I've ever sat through an entire episode of MASH, but I know all the major characters. I just don't know that I could tell you the plot of one episode.
Yeah, I love MASH. I did, one of my articles I wrote on the website was 11 drunken observations on MASH, but that's neither here nor there. So, I mean, your standard opening for that everything sort of was in the 70s. You just get a little clip of all the characters. You don't necessarily, it was a little bit different because a lot of the shows sort of had lyrics and maybe you kind of knew what the show was about. Here you don't know anything, but you do see a lot of logs, lots and lots of logs. First scene starts off with an older guy in a storm. His engine sort of died and he's gibbering up to just help me God, don't kill me here, because so we learned this is McCloskey. Now, apologies to Beachcombers fans. I don't remember and I couldn't figure out if this was a regular character. No clue. But he's Scottish and he's in trouble, and Relic shows up in his boat and says he's going to help him for $50, which
right.
$50 in 76. I mean, I know our dollar isn't what your dollar is, but
well, that would be a lot today for a person stranded. If you told them you would only help them for $50, that would be a lot, especially because people don't carry cash. I mean, you could cash app someone, I guess.
Yeah, but
it would be a lot.
Cash app, yeah, I do a lot of PayPal stuff now. I had to try to explain that to my dad the other day, but yeah. Anywho, Relic, he's not a good Samaritan. He just leaves that person there. Says, "I'll come back in an hour." He comes back to, I guess, Gibson's, where this is, and well, there's not much of a storm going on there. Maybe they didn't really think that. Yeah. Well, so be it. Margaret, the little girl on the show, that's the granddaughter of Molly, is collecting for the Dead Sailors Fund. She finds Smitty. Of course, there's a character named Smitty. And Smitty's sort of happy to donate. Relic is coming up, and Molly, who's the good Samaritan, says, well, maybe ask Relic anyway. And Relic says, what does a dead sailor need with money? Kind of true, I suppose, but there's spouses and whatnot. I mean, it's a good thing to sort of do, but we definitely know our lines of good and evil, but on this show, it's good and unscrupulous. Safe to say?
Or Relic, just the way they portrayed Relic seemed like he was more just curmudgeonly, not so much evil. or unscrupulous, but just kind of, what's the word? Kind of like Larry on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm, just misanthropic. That's the word I was looking for. Just not a people person.
Yeah.
More just kind of concerned with himself.
Incidentally, so the gentleman who played him, Robert Clothier. So Robert Clothier and Bruno Gerussi, they did a lot of acting in Stratford.
Okay.
Stratford in Ontario.
Are you talking about Shakespeare acting?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yeah. So you can kind of tell. That's one of the notes I sort of wrote down, that these two guys could definitely do well on the stage, and they did, because these are they're the only two who are able to play around with their voices, just use their arms for everything, just play act a little bit, where the other ones are just, they're not actors. So just little things that I was sort of trying to pick up on.
Yeah, more grandiose gestures. But I've heard theater actors in America say that when they do TV and movies, they're told to tone it down.
Maybe they were.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Because in comparison to, just the other ones were just children, other people who never acted in anything else.
Yeah.
There might have been that disconnect from that. And as I've just realized, I'm doing that with my hands. I mean, I do talk with my hands a lot. So I'm sure there was, that might have happened with the producers here. I didn't even look into the directors, producers, but I'm sure you're right. Or as I like to say, going back to a previous episode, because I like callbacks, Viola Davising it.
Yeah.
Which for newer listeners just is where, and again, I love Viola Davis, one of the greatest actresses I've ever seen, period. She just doesn't have to prove it in every scene.
Yeah. A running commentary here in America is if you're crying and you have snot running down your nose and you're doing a Viola Davis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think it was Fences, the one she won the Oscar for, that she was crying and had snot running down her nose.
Oh, really? Okay, I'll have to watch
talk
that.
Talk about lack of concern with glamour.
That's another reason why she's so awesome.
Yeah.
Just even that first what was the show? Not Scandal. That was the
murder.
Yeah, How to Get Away with Murder. Just that one scene in that first episode where she's just taking off her wig, her eyelashes, just powerful shit. I can't verbally do it justice, so I won't, and I'll continue. All right, we also know that Relic, here's another note I wrote. We also know that Relic is presented as a buffoon because as he's walking, they've got the dopey piano music going. Molly tells Relic, "Oh, you'll get your just rewards." And he says, "Yes, I'll agree, for McCloskey in 40 minutes. Nick, the hero of the show, shows up and later on, and he's got the boat, but he's got McCloskey's boat, but there's no McCloskey. Well, Relic is pissed because he had a deal. He was going to make some money and asks where he is. And then Nick just says, "Don't know. I guess he's down there," implying that he's dead. That's all he could find. Relic doesn't pick up on a lot of cues right away because Nick, the great guy of the show, should have been a lot more worried about it, but he wasn't.
Right.
So, yeah, that minor plot hole, whatever. So Relic goes out because he's freaking out, and that's where I had him sort of like where I mentioned he's kind of hamming it up just a little bit, and he takes off looking for McCloskey. Meanwhile, back at the restaurant, we find out that he's not McCloskey's obviously not dead. Nick's got some kind of plan, but he doesn't really have a plan as of yet. Which is, I guess, another plot hole I didn't really realize until now. They didn't decide to give Relic his comeuppance up until later, but so be it. Here's something maybe you didn't know. The constable there, you know what his character name was?
No, I don't.
Constable John Constable. So his last name was Constable.
Oh my God.
And if you didn't know this was a Canadian show, they're not having beer, because that would be not G or PG. They're having donuts and coffee. And
Yeah,
to be fair, 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from today, I'm moving back to Canada, and I cannot wait to go to Tim Hortons for donuts and coffee.
which Tim Hortons has become as ubiquitous as Starbucks in the United States.
Has it? Okay, because I know that
Yeah,
it got to the U.S. You're in Columbus. I don't think it gotten to the to much to the south, but I saw. But in Ohio, I guess it's.
yeah. I don't know about the rest of the
Mhm.
the country, but the Midwest region, yeah, it's pretty common.
Okay.
Tim Hortons. In fact, there's probably more Tim Hortons than Starbucks, if that's possible.
And there's more Tim Hortons than anything else in Canada, or is it Subway?
Wow.
I don't know. Eh, I'll count them when I drive from Toronto to Winnipeg. Anywho, so Nick decides, well, maybe this is the time that maybe they can get him. And then he tells a story about we're going to send him to Coventry. The other grandkid, that was Huey. I forgot all about him. Huey says, like, what, Coventry in England? Well, no, that would be far more sinister. That would be something really cool. But that's not the Canadian way in the 70s, you see. They're just going to basically pretend that he's dead. Kind of juvenile and silly. Did you ever pretend that as a kid? Or just like you're trying to get back at somebody, and then you also, okay, we're just gonna pretend like we're like you're dead.
I didn't try to play a prank on someone pretending they were dead, but I do remember distinctly one time trying to or pretending that I was blind, like I had went
Mhm.
blind. I don't know why. I thought maybe it would get me attention, and yeah, it did not work.
Didn't get you any extra Valentines, huh?
No, no. All I did was just bumped into things.
Yeah, I was joking with my wife because we're struggling to see if we can get our dog back on the plane because Air Canada is being a lot tougher. I thought maybe I can pretend I'm blind with my seeing eye corgi. No, that probably wouldn't work.
I thought in I don't know how it is in with Canadian Airlines or Canadian Customs, but I think in the U.S. All you have to do is just say it's a service dog. I don't think you have to produce like proof that it's you
I
know
don't
you have
know.
a disability.
I think they've cracked down on that because a lot of people were taking advantage of that when they're not really
Okay.
service or emotional support dogs. I'm I guess very much like Nick. I'm trying to do this completely legally
Okay.
before I have to go full on relic. But I think it's going to work out okay. So relic shows up, and then they're instituting their plan, and then I sort of relic's not really falling for it. He's just more annoyed, and then I always wrote down like, why didn't they do this the same thing that I would do when I was a kid? Really, if I'm dead, then how come I'm touching you? Because he never did that, but whatever. Relic's asking for coffee. He doesn't get any. They're keeping the whole shtick up, saying, well, we're not looking for Relic, but because of his conscience, just didn't have one. And then Relic says, I have no conscience, which we later learned that he pretty much does. And then makes a joke I never understood. Goes back to the booth and says, like, you have to serve me because the cop is there, constable. I have to be
Mhm.
served. It's illegal because of race, creed, or conscience. Isn't that right, Flatfoot? I've never understood why that's an insult for a cop.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with they did so much. Well, at least this is what I've heard for American cops is that
Mhm.
they were known to have done so much foot patrol that it like lowered the arches or destroyed the arches on their feet. So that's where I heard that it came from.
Not really all that insulting. So you did your job well. It's like me making fun of my dad, who was a car painter, used the spray gun for. Isn't that right, Mister Arthritis? Nah.
Right.
But you got upset, Mister Constable. But whatever. Constable though says, "Well, you know what? I've got to go do the unthinkable." Oh wait, no, I fast forwarded here. Huey comes back, says the boat's gone, and not even Smitty has seen Relic. Relic sort of like takes off because now he's really worried because he should be. His boat's gone. He never actually did say like, "You assholes stole my boat."
Right.
It's not a. Man, Relic's handling this a little bit better than I would, but that's just me. Uh, Smitty pretends that he doesn't see him, runs back in the restaurant. They're continuing the shtick, Nick and the gang. Constable says they've got to do the unthinkable and look for Relic, and nobody wants to help. And then he uses his non-existent deputy powers to deputize Huey. Like, okay, sure. So they go out. Then I wrote down more stupidness ensues. Relic then decides to serve himself. And Molly says, Nick, the stew is floating right through the air. Relic's not really falling for it because he says sarcastically, oh, well, so I'm invisible, blah, blah, blah. Nick calls in plan B. Oh, I guess at this point, I would have given up on this whole thing. I would have gone with it. But whatever, that's just me. Nick says, oh, Relic must be a ghost and he's in the in-between world or whatever. That's not what he said, but.
Yeah, he's in Bruce Willis' Sixth Sense territory.
Yeah, you can't really watch that movie again, huh? Once you know the big twist at the end. Relic holds a spoon and the young Margaret screams and Bruno continues with his Shakespearean dialogue. Meanwhile, we go back on the water and this is the most logical thing said. Huey says, wouldn't have been more convincing using a police boat. Constable responds with more logic. Well, then I could be fired for using police resources on this. You're literally doing police resources now by leaving. You're not in the town. You're just on. You're out there doing a prank.
You're helping play a prank on someone. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, okay. I found in later episodes, just the opening things because it was the same character. So his, they have like starring so-and-so, and well, the guy who played the constable got starring his name, I forget his name, and his clip was somebody running over his feet and him going, so clearly he was not exactly the most competent individual. I think if you and I ever decide we're going to go to a crime spree, that's where we're going to go do it.
Yeah, so that's an age-old trope, the Keystone cops, the bumbling cops that can't fight crime, obviously.
Yeah, they're either corrupt or incompetent, sometimes both. Sometimes in real life they are. So there you go. Not trying to offend all cops. You know that every profession has them.
Send emails to Kirk Buchner.
Yeah, send your hate mail at kirk.buchner@notinhalloffame.com.
Okay.
Yeah, why not? I have gotten hate mail before, actually.
Have you really?
Oh, yeah. For actually, the biggest one was Rank saying that Tim Duncan was a better basketball player than Kobe Bryant.
Oh,
which I still maintain. I think actually was a death threat.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Or could be perceived as such, but so be it.
People take sports seriously.
That was actually before Kobe passed that I said that. So
that's what I said. People just take sports, period.
So do I, but not to the point where if anyone disagrees with me on an opinion, I'm going to wish death or scabies upon them. Okay, you don't agree with me. Tell me why. Because I can tell you why I have this. Either way, I've gotten off topic again. Okay, so back at the house, Nick is using more hocus pocus. They're coming down the stairs. Margaret's got a sheet on, holding a candle. Relic blows out the candle. He's more annoyed than believing any of this. But I'll give this guy his acting chops. I'll give it to him. He's doing all these facial expressions to make it look like, oh, this is bullshit, but maybe.
Yeah.
Did you get that vibe too, Chris?
Yeah, I thought they struck the right tone because it would have just been completely unbelievable if he would have been like totally spooked out, like, oh my God, I'm dead. And I don't know it, or I'm caught in purgatory. I can't, and if he would have just been completely the opposite, like you said, like touching people and being a total dick about it, that would have been too far to the other extreme. So I thought it was just the right balance of he's annoyed and knows they're pranking him, but also there's that little, oh my God, am I really in like the afterlife? Yeah.
So Relic leaves Hanoi, goes back into his houseboat where he lives. Man, what a depressing place to live that looked like, huh?
Yeah. Looked like a shack, basically.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what he would have used that $50 for.
Not furniture, apparently.
Clothes.
Yeah.
Or anything. Okay. McCloskey comes down the stairs, said he'd rather eat, so he's not exactly presented as somebody who's super intelligent either. Gang comes out, the boat comes back, and they're carrying a body bag. Relic again, he's got that acting like, well, I know that's not really me, but what? No, it's not me. Nick says they should say something. Constable says, well, I guess a police report will do. And they're carrying it like it's a funeral procession. McCloskey comes out confronting Relic, and he's just like they just put seaweed all over him.
Yeah.
Like, McCloskey, is that you? Because I think at this point he sort of forgot that maybe he forgot all about McCloskey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they all laugh. It was a little lame, but so be it. But Relic is just because you can't have him be a totally bad guy. He drops a bunch of cash on purpose as he runs into his house shack. Let's call it a houseboat shack. Which Nick says, okay, it's going to the Sailors Fund. And cue to credits.
Now I couldn't, the way Relic dropped the money, I was confused by that. I wasn't sure if he was like trying to like, oh, I'm not really giving you this money. I'm trying to pretend it fell out of my pocket. Was that the?
I think so, because then if he hands the money, then he's doing a good deed. If it just like pretends to do that, then but he knows that he's doing it. Okay, we know he's trying to do something good, but he can't acknowledge that he's doing something good.
Okay.
So I mean, he's an unlikable person, but he's not an unsavable person. I think we know that if he really thought McCloskey was going to die, he would have helped him out.
Right.
But he thinks he can make some bucks off of it.
Yeah.
Which again, he doesn't use for anything.
And like you said, it's not like he was living in the lap luxury. So he's either just cheap, he either has money and he doesn't spend it, or he doesn't have money. So it's sort of understandable, or he'd be trying to get money wherever he can. And
yeah, so that's why I had to find the closest thing I had to it's the New Orleans Saints thing. So I had to like dig through it, because obviously I don't have much use for winter clothes here, but I will very quickly.
Yeah. We just had here in the Midwest, we were calling it Snowmageddon, a huge snowstorm that it wasn't just the Midwest. I think it was the East and parts of the Southeast as well. Just huge. Yeah, I got snowed in for a couple of days. My car wouldn't move. There was just ice caked around my tires. Yeah.
I just realized I did the A. I did the Canadian A. I said, oh, really, eh? We'll see how much of that sort of gets picked back up on. Final thoughts on the Beachcombers. Does this seem like this would have been the show that is one of the most successful in Canadian history?
Well, I don't know the history of Canadian television. So, and I don't remember, we were talking offline. I don't remember if I said this when we had started recording yet, but the thing that strikes me as curious about the Beachcombers is not the fact that it's Canadian, because it wouldn't have stood out to me as Canadian if I had seen it during its run. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that the tone is so off from anything, or unusual, I should say, from anything in America. As I was saying before, shows that are like sort of ensemble comedies that are on film in America are not exactly raunchy, but it's like more adult. And you wouldn't have had a little kid or a child. If you had the child would have been kind of like mature beyond their years and foul-mouthed. And if it was a straight out family sitcom, it would have been shot on videotape. Right. So it did not surprise me that this aired on PBS, because it struck me as either something that would be on PBS or Saturday morning syndication. It would not have been in prime time in America, because it's too goody-goody to be a regular primetime show for adults, but it's not quite a family show. So it's not a family sitcom or family drama like 8 is Enough. It's its own little genre that would not really have had a place on American TV. Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing too, while I'm sort of thinking about that, they're just Bruno Gerussi is just such a likable person. I thought that before I sort of got the firsthand account from some of my friends that, it's not like we ever sat down had a beer and talked about the Beachcombers. Usually we were talking about the train that came in, or something like that. One of the people mentioned that Bruno had a cooking show, and he did. That was actually another long-lasting show in Canada. It was Celebrity Chefs, so kind of a precursor to what has been going on. I don't know if anyone did that before. So he would cook along with a celebrity, either Canadian celebrity or an American celebrity or some celebrity. That's incidentally the last time Bob Crane from Hogan's Heroes ever appeared on camera.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So Canada really is a forerunner, because I mean, you would see maybe cooking segments on like morning TV, like Good Morning America, but until, like you said, this recent explosion of like foodie TV, that was not a thing at all in America until the 2000s.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of felt really, I had to question my own cynicism, but I had to remember where it was coming from. That was sort of like when I was much younger. I thought, maybe that's sort of the industry I want to go into, like behind the scenes, which obviously I never did. You however, did, with your film.
You're talking about film and television. You're talking about film and television. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, it's a great time.
For a minute there, I thought you were saying you wanted to be a chef.
No, God, no. No, the only thing I can make, I'm actually much better than I used to be, but Pop-Tarts and Kraft Dinner. But no, I thought, maybe in television in some form, not as an actor or anything like that, but I always
so you wanted to be behind the camera, or you said you didn't want to be an actor?
I wanted to get into screenwriting. Still do, maybe at some point. I've got a few things that I might bounce off you later on.
Yeah, there's no, screenwriting is something you can do at any age. I mean, it's not like you're trying to go become the next Michael J. Fox or whatever. So I mean,
and I'm taller than him. I can't say that about many.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you have good ideas, screenwriting is evergreen.
Yeah, so I guess we got to figure out what we're doing next week. Now it goes back to you're going to tell me, or next week, or whenever that might be, because we don't do this weekly. We just do this whenever we can.
Yeah. Well, if you want to, I don't know if you want to have me say it now, but I definitely have an idea.
What do you got?
Yeah, I would love to look at That 80s Show. It was a spinoff of That 70s Show, and since we're both we're both Gen X. We're no longer kids, but you can say we're Gen X kids. That was a very, very short-lived, disastrous spinoff.
I'm sure we can find that. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone of our generation who saw it was like, this is like the most ridiculous. They're taking the most extremes from the 80s, like, multicolored mohawks and neon colored clothes. And it doesn't translate. Like how that 70s show had some stuff from the 70s, like the decor of the house and like the flip hairstyles and everything, but it wasn't so over the top that it seemed buffoonish or
let's do it.
Too over the top. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we can get that done before I move. So
yeah, I haven't tried to find it on YouTube, but I would imagine it's out there somewhere.
If not, though, the one I was kicking around to was the Harlem Globetrotters go on Gilligan's Island.
Oh, I'd never even heard of that. Wow. That we could do that if we can't find that 80s show, or if we do find that, we could do that after.
Yeah, so that was something I thought was more of a take on just how the Harlem Globetrotters seemed to be everywhere at one point in time in my youth.
Yeah, they had the cartoon at one point.
Yeah, and then they went to Gilligan's Island and played robots.
Wow.
Yeah, when their coach was Scatman Crothers. If that's not a time capsule, I don't know what is.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah, we have to do that.
All right. So before we go, Chris, it's Oscar season, and you've got a documentary out that I saw that you forgot to submit.
Yeah.
Tell everyone what it is.
So Lady Wrestler is a documentary about the Black women who integrated pro wrestling in the 1950s. So I'm wondering if it was like a Freudian slip that I forgot to submit it to the Oscars, because it's like I can say, oh yeah, I forgot, not that I was rejected or didn't make the short list. So yeah, and I'm sort of like, I don't know if I should have even shared that on social media, because it was like I'm trying to like be vulnerable and show like what the process is when you're a creative person, that the highs and lows. But yeah, I was like, okay, is this first world problems whining, or is it actually showing people that, hey, we all go through disappointments and some of them are self-inflicted?
Or let's just look at it this way. This is a plug to watch a really cool documentary, and you don't have to be a wrestling fan to get into it. That's how
Cool.
we'll take it.
Cool. And it's on Amazon Prime Video. Well, not Prime in the sense that you get it, it comes with your membership, but you can rent it or buy it.
Yep. Yeah. So I encourage everyone to do that. And since you're going to be on Amazon anyway, I wrote a book. Hey, Chavo
Yes.
Guerrero, instant classic. So
Awesome book.
Yeah, a little bit of self-promotion from us both. With that, we'll see you all when we see you. Stay safe, everybody, wherever you may be.